All right, welcome to the show. Others receiving votes. Our October 30th episode. I'm Pat Forde, joined as always by Gene Wojciechowski and Bryan Fischer. And on today's show, we're going to talk about the literal political football at LSU. We're going to weigh in on what Lane Kiffin should do with his life, because he's dying for our advice, I'm sure. We're going to rule on whether there are enough good coaches for open or potentially open jobs. We're going to take a peek at next week's first playoff rankings. We're going to pick games. And, Tulane has monkeys on the loose somewhere in Mississippi. All right, guys, let's get into it. We started the BK Memorial rant bit in September. We thought there would be an endless supply of those. Alas, there is not. BK is now really the memorial rant, memorial coach. Been fired at LSU. Producer Kent, if you can you play the rant for us one more time?
I'm going f***ing in. Is that clear? If you guys want to go half speed, let me know now. You're wasting my time. Get your asses going.
All right, fellas, I don't know about you. Brings a little bit of a tear to my eye hearing Brian Kelly telling us to get our asses in gear one more time. But here we are. I guess we have to. But we have new material as LSU has gone full LSU. Always a little bit crazy down on the Bayou, and they have achieved it now with Governor Jeff Landry stepping in and basically essentially firing Athletic Director Scott Woodward and saying that he will not conduct the coaching search. Here is Jeff Landry taking charge, hostile takeover of LSU. Play that sound if you...
to foot the bill. So, yeah, I absolutely. Who's that? No. I can tell you right now, Scott Woodward is not selecting the next coach. Hell, I'll let Donald Trump select it before I let him do it. I don't know, but the Board of Supervisors is going to come up with a committee, and they're going to go find us a coach. Hold on. One real quick thing on that. Because here's what y'all reporters need to do. Y'all need to start looking at who represents all these people. Like these agents. You know what's interesting? If I'm not mistaken, Woodward's agent, Kelly's agent, the Texas A&M, they're all the same agent. Like you realize if I would be, I don't know how many sports writers we got here today? Just you. We should have a bunch. Okay? Like this is ridiculous. Lawyers would be disbarred for the way these agents act and the way they're able to represent. In fact, there's no doubt, they may even represent some of the players now. Like it's really time for the NCAA to put on some guardrails in college sports. Because, and it's fine. We don't need the guardrails. If big billionaires want to spend all that kind of money, no problem. But if I got to go find $53 million from Kemp, it's not going to be a pleasant conversation.
There we go.
I love the sign language guy on the side. He's never had to do that before.
He's got to work hard to keep up with that stream of consciousness. There's a lot to unpack here, guys, from the governor's power play. I start with this, and Gene, I want to start with you. Did Jeff Landry, the governor of Louisiana, somehow make the top available coaching job less attractive?
No. I mean, that was theatrics. It was entertaining. But at the end of the day, the LSU job is still the best job available out there. And it might be the best job in the country, regardless of what else is open. One thing about what Landry said, though, about agents, look, they're easy targets. I get it. But the agents are doing whatever they can for their client. It's the athletic directors and the university presidents who agreed to what the agents demand. So he really should be directing all of his wrath at those two entities. And in this case, he did toward Scott Woodward. All those that are going to be involved in the search for the next LSU coach, please step forward. Not so fast, Scott. I don't really have a problem with, he said a lot of other things and directed towards Scott Woodward and buyouts. I really don't have a problem with what he said. In most cases, I thought he was right. I thought if you're going to fire Brian Kelly, then why does Scott Woodward still have a job? Because he's the guy who hired him. And by the way, a month from now, on November 30th, will be the day that they officially hired Brian Kelly. And Scott Woodward said, Brian Kelly is the epitome of a winner. His credentials and consistency speak for themselves. And the official press release called Kelly's hiring the most accomplished hire in program history. So I can see why they're benching Scott Woodward now, and he's in charge of sorting out paper clips for the foreseeable future. But no, I don't think the job is any less. And I know Brian's going to say something about alignment and, here we go. And they don't have it at LSU, but they're going to hire a new president soon. And it sounds like they're going to hire a new AD soon. And does Lane Kiffin really care about that? So I think all the things that made LSU a great job, the resources, the in-state recruiting, the regional recruiting that's available to them, the big money donors, that stadium, the passion of that program, no really in-state competition as far as other universities, all that's still there. The ability to win a national championship is all there. So I don't think it's a less attractive job. I just think it's craziness on the Bayou, as usual.
As usual, exactly. I mean, like many things in Baton Rouge, the answer, especially involving Louisiana politics, is complicated, and I think it's a reminder that this is the same governor that last year at the game that I was at Tiger Stadium, he tried to put a live mascot, a live tiger that was not Mike the Tiger, by the way, onto the field, come hell or high water, no matter what. So this is the same guy, obviously, that has interjected himself into LSU and LSU football before. So that's nothing new, not only for Governor Landry, but for governors in that state of Louisiana. If you go back to the old days of Huey Long actually going out on the field with the old marching band there. So nothing changes about the job. It's still a great job. And I think it was probably telling that, somebody one of the local TV stations interviewed one of the board of supervisors chair. And he said this is the first time he was learning about it, which was kind of like, all right, well, that's kind of the state of things, mostly it just kneecaps, Scott Woodward from more quietly going about his business and trying to land a big fish. That's the thing, normally in a lot of these coaching searches, if you would have a report from a small station, TV station, or a radio reporter or whatever, you usually kind of dismiss that a little bit, maybe trust the national guys. That might not be the case here with involving the board of supervisors, involving half the city of Baton Rouge in the search. That's the thing. It's going to complicate things a little bit more about finding a coach. If anything, is that you're going to just involve more people instead of having Scott Woodward, who typically does not use search firms, typically goes about his business very quietly, and then ends up announcing some big name out of nowhere. That's kind of how he typically operates. And to cut that kind of out of the process probably more complicates things in the search part of things versus landing the coach. I think it's still a great job. Obviously this is, one of the marquee openings, not only in this coaching cycle, but, nationally. And I think there's going to be a lot of coaches that are going to say, yes, you would ideally like a lot of alignment, and you would like the school president page. You would like the athletic director on the same page. You'd like, in this case, the governor on the same page, but it doesn't really matter because this job is that good. And so I'm sure we'll get into talking about Lane Kiffin here in a little bit, but I don't think this changes anything in terms of the actual search, other than it could get a little bit more messier than it should be.
Yeah, it's, they are going full on Louisiana here.
Perfect.
Certainly historically, the governor has found a way to inject himself in things there before. Huey Long, the Kingfish, as you mentioned, liked his LSU football. I think most governors down there find it politically expedient to like LSU football. Whether they actually get involved and kneecap the AD is a different matter. A couple of things. One thing, I talked to some people pretty well steeped in Louisiana politics who think that part of the reason for this, and especially the grandstanding nature of it, is Scott Woodward more on the Democratic side, a little more liberal. Worked with James Carville back in the day, who I am sure is not pals with Jeff Landry, who's very much on the other side of the aisle. But the fact that he wants Donald Trump potentially involved in the coaching search, now that would be interesting, but we're not going to go there.
No.
We're not going to entertain Donald Trump's search firm college football coach. But that this was as much about him not liking Woodward's politics and wanting to do what, to a degree, Trump has done, of like, hey, if I can interfere with higher education and how they do it to get things aligned with how I want things, I will. Whether that should involve the AD, that's up to you to decide. But so that's in play here. Now, that's not to defend the contract that Woodward gave Kelly, which was ridiculous and was same as the ridiculous contract he gave Jimbo Fisher. But another point of clarity, I guess, on this, he said they all have the same agents. They don't. Brian Kelly has a different agent than Jimbo Fisher. One has Jimmy Sexton, one has Trace Armstrong.
Right.
So there was a lot of shooting from the hip here, which certainly made for entertaining audio and video. I agree with you guys that, look, whoever takes the job, you're just going to have to embrace the fact that this is LSU and it's a bit nuts. But that doesn't make it any less of a great job when guys that I think most people who have watched a lot of college football or been in college football would say we're not like the upper echelon of geniuses like Ed Orgeron and Les Miles could win national titles there. I think that's what makes this attractive, is like a lot of people can win national titles at LSU. And I think that's what Brian Kelly thought all along. Whoops, he was wrong. But I think that's what attracted him there. And I think that's what will attract elite coaches to this job. And speaking of that.
Well, Pat, can I just, one thing I wanted to ask you guys, though. I mean, one of the things that Landry sort of railed against was this idea of the buyouts and why are we paying this is incredible amount of money, and that's sort of not going to happen again. I can't envision a scenario where LSU goes full Costco on this on their next hire and goes cheap. I think they'll pay the market price. It will be interesting to see if they draw the line in the sand as far as buyout money is concerned. Will this be the first university in this kind of situation that says no more $54 million buyouts? We're not doing that. We'll do this for you. We'll restructure it this way, but no more buyouts. That is going to be the interesting part of it.
I agree. Let's talk about that for a second. That do the schools have the backbone to do that in this cycle where it's going to be very competitive going after coaches? Or do they say, do they revert at the last minute when Kiffin is saying, well, school X is going to give me a big buyout. I feel like I'd have a little more security there. Does school Y then say, well, then we have to too? I don't know. Brian, what do you think?
Well, I think Jimmy Sexton is like 152-0 against athletic directors nowadays. So I can't even imagine him negotiating with somebody out of their element from the Board of Supervisors in the state of Louisiana. So that is something to keep in mind here. You're right. I mean, they're going to pay the market rate. Not only that, maybe there is some structural things where you're not given a 10-year contract, which is crazy in, not only in retrospect, but in crazy just to think that's what you need to land a guy like Brian Kelly, who was kind of looking to jump, there from Notre Dame back in the day and wanted to take this job. People want to take this job. And I think that's going to be key, not only in the search, but in terms of how you structure the contract. Yeah, maybe it's a little bit more incentive laden than we're used to. Maybe it ends up you can make $12-15 million a year, but you got to win the national title. I think structurally that's how you can change things. And maybe it's a 5-year deal, pretty standard with some rollovers, that sort of thing. And it wouldn't surprise me if a coach says, yeah, sure, okay, we'll do that. Yeah, we're not getting the $75 million. And if you're talking about Lane Kiffin, he's pretty much came out and said, and I believe him, that money is not going to be a huge factor in terms of where he goes, because I think for him in particular, he wants the job. He wants what fits him best. What's going to allow him to win a national title? What's going to validate him as a coach? It's not going to be the paycheck. It's going to be, can I win at this place? And so I think that's an important thing to kind of keep in mind with LSU and whatever direction they go in terms of landing the coach. I think they are going to structure it a little bit differently.
Yeah, that's the who has the juice here will just be really interesting. LSU, you would think, could drive a hard bargain because people want that job. But on the other hand, the top coaches can drive a hard bargain because there's not enough supply for the demand. But, all right, speaking of Kiffin, he is now a proven SEC winner and an apparent grown-up. Two recent developments. He's always been a good coach. I never thought he was capable of being quite serious enough to win at the higher level, but he keeps doing it. And I think this year his work at Ole Miss is probably his best work he's done. So let's just ask, if you are Lane Kiffin, do you go to LSU? Do you go to Florida? Do you go to Penn State? Or do you stay at Ole Miss, which is very much, I think, a potential option here? 4 good options on the table right now. What do you, Brian, go ahead on that.
Well, I think we do need to talk about a little bit of context in here in terms of, I think there's been this narrative that Ole Miss is somehow just as good as LSU in Florida. And I think we talked about it a little bit on the last episode. And I think, is it a better job in the NIL era? You know, for sure, you can get talent there. And it was especially a better job in the kind of wild west era of NIL, where you could pay whatever you want in order to land your roster. And you know, Ole Miss found a market efficiency. They were organized. They were ready. There was that keyword alignment from the boosters, especially at Ole Miss, the administration, what Lane Kiffin wanted to do. And it's a good job now, but it's not a better job than LSU. It's not a better job than Florida. And it's not just a talent thing, but in this cap revenue share era, you know, to be able to get a guy from the state that wanted to go up and grow up and play at LSU or play at Florida, to maybe take a little bit less so that you can spend a little bit, you know, in other areas on your roster, I think that means something. And I don't think that's necessarily the case at Ole Miss. And that's something that I think Lane Kiffin's going to be as comfortable as he is, having all his family there, and he likes it there. You know, Ole Miss took a chance on him to give him another SEC job. I think that means something to him. At the end of the day, though, LSU and Florida are better jobs. And I keep coming back to that. And, you know, I think for somebody like Lane, he values the setup. He wants to keep making playoff bids, but he also wants that validation, not just being known for the antics, not just being known for being Lane Kiffin, you know, the off the field coach. You know, he wants to win a national title to validate what he's accomplished on the field. And I think, you know, in order to do that, you got to go to LSU. You know, maybe you see Florida and you see being the spiritual successor to Steve Spurrier, where maybe you can have a podcast with him off the field. You know, I think if you're Lane Kiffin, you are going to strongly look at going to Florida or LSU, bringing the family with you, and setting up to where you can win a national title, which I think both places are equipped to do.
What do you think, Pat?
I think LSU, because I think that's I do think that's the most direct path to a national championship, and I think he is at that point where he wants to win one and put his stamp on himself as a coach and his legacy, and I am that good a coach. So that would be the best path to get there, I believe. I mean, I think you could win a national title at Florida. It's been done. I think you can win a national title at Penn State. Hadn't been done since 1986, but it's been done. Mississippi, the last time they won a national title, most black people weren't allowed to play college football. So it's been a long time. And I do think that, yes, the advantages there are not nearly what they are at other places. So as much as, you know, and I'm not saying coaches lie per se when they bring up family and this, and we got, you know, things lying, you know, my granddaughter lives here and my son lives here and that sort of thing. But most of the time, the decision is not who lives near me. It is where can I win the most. And so I think if it comes down to that, then it's going to be LSU. What do you think, Gino?
Well, if we're making the argument these days that a program such as Indiana can win a national championship, then you can win a national championship at Ole Miss. And Nick Saban just recently made this argument, and I think there's a lot of truth to it, that these days you can win at more places than you could in the past.
Yeah.
If you have that pipeline of NIL money pouring in. And so it's a valid point. But you can also win easier at a legacy program such as Florida, Penn State, LSU. Also, if you have that pipeline coming in, because you have more advantages. We've mentioned Jimmy Sexton. Sexton is going to give Kiffin good counsel. He's the guy who asked Nick Saban, do you want to be the Bear Bryant of LSU, or do you want to try to go to Miami Dolphins and be Don Shula? And Saban said the Dolphins, and Sexton was right. He should have stayed at LSU and been that guy. So I think he'll get good advice from Sexton. But I'm with you guys. If he wants to win a national championship, and I'm not even bringing up the idea of, is there going to be an NFL team that comes kicking the tires on Lane Kiffin after this season? If we're just sticking to colleges, I think LSU, if we're talking about fit, and they certainly are at LSU these days, I think Kiffin would be a great fit there.
You mentioned the NFL. Of course, he had the was it like 13 games or whatever with the Raiders, in which near the end when he knew he was going to get fired and sent Janikowski out to try a 76-yard field goal.
But different guy. We're saying he's an adult now.
Yes.
So if he's a different guy, do they look at him differently? I don't know. It's a long shot, but I'm just throwing it out there.
I think it's entirely possible. Yeah. I do. I mean, I think he's the kind of guy with that kind of strategic mind and offensive acumen that people become enamored with in the NFL, and for good reason. I mean, look like Shane Steichen with the Colts right now.
Yeah. Good example.
So, yeah.
Good example.
So anyway, all right. So we've got LSU open, we've got Florida open, we've got Penn State open, and some other very good jobs. I mean, UCLA, Virginia Tech, etc. Given that, if you're the AD at a quote-unquote second-tier school, which isn't necessarily the case, but Auburn, Florida State, Wisconsin, places where everybody is mad at the coach and wants to fire the coach, but it would be expensive, and can you get a superstar to replace that coach? Do you stand pat into 2026, no matter how bad it is in 25, and how would the fans react? My opinion, boy, I think it is extremely toxic right now in all three of the places I mentioned, Auburn, Florida State, and Wisconsin, and going with the same coach into the next season would be very difficult in terms of fan backing. I mean, people, as we've said, it's remarkable how quickly people want to give up on a season these days. Well, do you want them to give up before the season even starts? If you still have Hugh Freeze and Mike Norvell and Luke Fickell, I think that would be the case. And especially if you look at Florida State, they rebooted everything after last year. Can you reboot again and sell people that you think it's actually going to work? Can you blow out the coordinators again, bring in new coordinators? Can you go, get 20 new guys in the portal and say, this time we're going to nail it? Auburn, similar situation. Can you go, say, well, yes, we've screwed up on our quarterbacks the last two, but this time we're going to get it right. Wisconsin, just a mess there. Haven't beaten anybody of note in quite a long time. So it really, to me, it comes down to those places less to, can you get a home run coach than can you afford the buyout? Florida State really might be the one that can't, because that is a massive buyout for Norvell. Auburn, less so, and I think they don't care that much about whether the buyout looks ridiculous. In Wisconsin, they're more frugal, but I think they may have to just make the move and bite the bullet there with Fickell. It's like 27, 20, high 20s.
About $25 million.
There we go, about $25 million. So I don't know. What do you guys think, Gene? Your thoughts?
I could make a case. I don't know if it'd be a strong case. I don't know if it'd convince either one of you. I could make a case that Hugh Freeze, that program is better than it was. Did he screw up the quarterback position? Yes. Has he maybe kind of found a quarterback that can win now? We'll see. I could hold my nose and give it another run with Hugh next year. Florida State, it seems like they're doing everything they can to try to not pay that buyout, to keep Norvell. And if Florida State can run the table, big if, they still they have a game at Clemson and at Florida, but both of those programs, Clemson and Florida, are vulnerable. If they could run the table, maybe there's a scenario where they go, we're going to give this guy one last chance. The only place I just don't think you can put out the dumpster fire is at Wisconsin. And they're going to go, I don't see another win on their schedule for the remainder of this season. So they're going to go 2-10. Yeah. So they're absolutely trending the wrong way. This is his third year there. You're right, Pat. I think it's one of those things you're going to have to pay the $25 million or so and start fresh. But the other two, maybe you can hold your nose long enough to give it a go.
Can we just real quick? You gave us a very good Midwestern O in Wisconsin. Can you say that again for us?
I know my wife gives me a hard. I say Wisconsin.
Wisconsin.
Yeah, McDonald's, the bubbler. Yeah, you take 2 stop and goes, and then you're darn right. So
you've lived in Chicago. You're in the area that's closer. Yes.
Well, I used to live in Milwaukee. My family's from Milwaukee, so I can't get rid of Wisconsin. Sorry.
Good. Never change.
I think they just might add you to the search committee. You keep saying it like that.
All right, go ahead, Brian. Cut up my arguments here on FSU and Auburn.
No, I think FSU, deep down they would love to punt this decision to next year, just given the money they've spent, not only on the roster, which is pretty significant this year, but you're talking about the coordinators that they both gave multi-year contracts to get them down after the coordinator change, the reboot on the coaching staff. You look at what they've spent just to get Doak Walker renovated and all that. This is not the richest fan base in terms of the boosters that you can tap. And they've been pretty tapped out in terms of the last couple of years. Not just paying the contract to get Norvell and have him make $10 million a year, but on the roster, on everything. This is not, your older kind of billionaire type of booster fan base. That's just not what FSU can kind of tap into. And so I think that they would love to kind of ultimately kick this decision down the road. But one kind of factor too is because it is such an active coaching market, maybe you kind of do make the calculation and say, all right, this is actually a market where, because there are going to be so many jobs open, Mike Norvell can get another gig. I think everybody could see, all right, he won 13 games. He went 13-0 with Florida State one time. Obviously, the beginning and the end of the tenure a little bit questionable, but he was a guy especially in the group of 5 when he was at Memphis. He won a lot of games. There's a reason he got to FSU in the first place. Maybe he can get another job that kind of mitigates what we got to pay. All right, maybe it's a less costly coaching turnover change at the end of the day. So maybe that's part of the calculation there at Florida State. Auburn, rational thought and Auburn are never two things that you kind of associate with each other. They're going to do what they're going to do. All politics is local, and that's especially true on the plains there. And so I think it's going to be a decision, certainly based on these last couple of games with Hugh Freeze. It's almost like a weekly referendum there in terms of is the offense going to get over the hump? Is that going to put additional pressure on there? I think it was definitely telling that John Cohen, the AD, was kind of offered the opportunity to do the old statement of support for Hugh Freeze, and he talked about his car not starting. So I think that says a lot about what's going on there at Auburn. And I think the issue is that they brought him in to fix the offense, right? To make them a more watchable product, and that has not been the case. The offense has been bad. The quarterbacks that he's been handpicked have been bad, and you probably look out there in the market and say, yeah, we're not LSU and we're not Florida, but we can still land a John Summerall, a good head coach out there. There's just going to be enough attractive candidates, and that's a place that you can win. Not only can you win national titles there, as we've seen, but you can win a lot of SEC games as well. You have the resources there. You have the access to talent. That's going to be a good job. I think they would be pretty comfortable with where they could be in the marketplace. I think Wisconsin, there's a lot going on there. I think this is it is going to be a difficult buyout for that school to swallow if they do end up paying it. And there's a lot going on there, kind of behind the scenes. You never know what the program patriarch Barry Alvarez is going to be saying on the subject. He's got to obviously have a lot of say in terms of the direction that Wisconsin goes. We'll see what Chris McIntosh's future is going to be. I think it's been telling. The administration itself at the school has been very, very quiet these last couple of weeks. There was a big booster for the school that went out and did a big interview with one of the local papers recently, which is never a good sign when the boosters are talking to reporters so openly and honestly in the papers about trying to keep Luke Fickell, despite the fan base really checking out. And I think that's the calculation for Wisconsin is, man, those are a lot of empty seats at Camp Randall. The students are not showing up. It just looks bad. It's not only a bad product on the field, but it's a bad product on the stands. And for a school that is almost overly reliant on that ticketing revenue and filling that place up every Saturday, I think that's probably the most concerning thing when you're ultimately making the decision. And look, they're another school that's going to have great candidates. You got Lance Leipold out there. You got Jason Eck, who's an alum. Like they can land a good coach that can turn things around and really get the excitement factor back. And I think that's going to be a calculation for all three of these schools going forward.
Yeah. The jury may not be completely out in some of these spots. I think the Auburn situation is particularly compelling there. And if you look at November, they've got a chance. All right. So they got Kentucky this weekend. You should win that game. It's at home. The big one, November 8th at Vanderbilt. And I do think people still are having a hard time wrapping their mind around Vandy being good. I think one of the breaking points with Brian Kelly was, my God, you lost to Vanderbilt. Well, a lot of people are losing to Vanderbilt these days. But if you win that game, it's a big win. If you don't, okay. If you've lost that one, you're in trouble. You got Mercer after that, and then you have Alabama on the Plains. And while everyone will look at that and say, well, Alabama should win, that's what we also say when Ohio State plays Michigan. And when they play in Auburn, stuff happens. If you remember, the only way Alabama won the last time they played there and went on to the SEC championship and went on to the playoff was a 4th and 31 miracle play. So by no means chalk that up as, fait accompli that Alabama is going to win that game. So if Hugh Freeze is still viable, keep your eye on that game. So,
fait accompli, market efficiency, all politics are local. I feel like I'm taking the SATs here with you guys.
You got Wisconsin. So
and all I got is Wisconsin.
That's your contribution. Thank you. Thank you for your contribution. All right. Next week, Tuesday night, we start our weekly TV show. My favorite thing, when they drag some poor committee chairman of the College Football Playoff Selection Committee out there, put him on TV, have him answer questions, and then we all pillory the guy for what he says afterwards. Just wonderful. It's I'm sure ESPN gets good ratings for it. I don't think it serves the committee very well, but so they will go to the Grapevine. They will hunker down in the hotel. They will have their jalapeno cream corn, and they will produce a top 25. Here's what I'm curious about, guys. You tell me what you want to see, but I want to know how the committee views the SEC pecking order after Texas A&M. If Texas A&M is still undefeated when they do this. But to me, I think it is difficult to really fully decide between Alabama, Georgia, Mississippi, Vanderbilt, and so on, how to order those teams. Alabama has great wins, but the loss to Florida State keeps getting worse. And I wonder if that is a factor at all there. But they also have beaten Georgia, and Georgia has beaten Mississippi. So that's where it gets difficult. Big 12 and ACC unbeatens, BYU and Georgia Tech. Where do they land? How much does the committee value that zero that the SEC in particular doesn't want you to value nearly as much because strength of schedule is supposedly the talking point. And then what's the status of Notre Dame with 2 losses? Where are they in the pecking order? Are they in a position where they can lock up a bid? Gino, what are you going to be looking for Tuesday night?
I'm with you on the Notre Dame thing and that strength of schedule question. I'm really interested to see where they are after this first one. I mean, they lose at Miami, they lose against Texas A&M, at Notre Dame, and then since then, with the exception of USC, there's not a lot of muscle tone on that schedule. They're going to beat up Boston College this Saturday, and then it gets kind of maybe interesting. I mean, if you if you consider Navy, and I do, as an actual legitimate opponent.
Yep.
And then the big game that I don't think we would have ever thought, what's the date of that game? November 15th at Pitt.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, that might be the game that guarantees Notre Dame a spot in the playoffs. So I'm really interested to see what the committee really thinks of Notre Dame, at least initially. Obviously, all this is going to evolve and change, but Notre Dame's schedule is not going to evolve or change. It is what it is, and they have very few opportunities to impress the committee.
I'm right there with you guys on all that, but I would say the pecking order and really, who's that jockeying between the Big 12 and the ACC in terms of maybe getting two teams in is going to be interesting. Just kind of the initial snapshot view of these two leagues is going to be interesting. Is there going to be a surprise team in one of those two leagues that ends up sneaking into the top 25, which, hey, that gives, maybe a Texas Tech or Georgia Tech or somebody else that extra top 25 win, which the committee constantly refers to. That's going to be key, I think, for this initial ranking. What's the snapshot of each league? Because frankly, they don't have a lot of great non-conference wins. Texas Tech, that non-conference schedule was nothing. But hey, they got that win over Houston. That looks pretty good in retrospect. Where's Houston in the rankings? That's another thing with the Big 12. You could say, all right, if Houston ends up going 11-1 and their one loss was to Texas Tech in a game that was probably a little bit closer than the scoreline indicated, all right, maybe the Big 12 is sitting pretty in terms of getting two teams in. Where's Georgia Tech and everything? Yes, I think the records, in terms of the top 25 wins, they might not have one. Where are they in relation to Notre Dame? It wouldn't surprise me at all if Notre Dame, if the committee valued Notre Dame and what the Irish on the eye test have seen throughout the season, has Notre Dame ahead of Georgia Tech, which might be one of those curveballs that we kind of get in these initial rankings. So, it's always good to kind of try to parse out what the committee is thinking. At the end of the day, they are just ranking teams. They're saying this team is better than the other team. And then we're going to try to re-engineer some talking points to kind of justify it. But it is kind of that initial snapshot. And I think those two leagues in particular, that's going to be key in terms of not only the seeding, come the playoff time, but also in terms of who might be that league that gets that extra bid that we're not talking about right now.
Yeah, it's interesting. Yes, the downstream from the two undefeated teams in the Big 12 and the ACC. Where is Miami? Where's Texas Tech? And then where are the other teams that, as you said, Brian, they can use to prop up? Like, yes, they beat a top 25 Utah, or they beat a top 25 Louisville, or whatever the case may be. That is always interesting, and that is a moving target because those teams will cycle in and cycle out as things go along. But one thing I would love if the committee would explain, they put out a release in August that said, we're going to give added weight to strength of schedule, strength of record. What is the added weight? How much does it weigh? What is it exactly? Define strength of record for us. We can figure out strength of schedule, but define strength of record. And then is there an actual equation? We've got 30% strength of record, 30% strength of schedule, and 60% whatever we want, or 40%. My math is not very good. And I would like to know a little bit more about what exactly they're going to weigh there.
That's why we get the beleaguered committee chairperson with Reese Davis.
Yeah. Yes, we do.
Come on, Reese, do it for us.
Come on down, Mac Rhodes. You're time in that chair.
It will be Mac Rhodes, yes, and I think there was one other year. I mean, I know what did Ward Manuel do it, and that was like when there's always, or not always, but often there is an AD who's sitting in that chair as the piñata, but also is dealing with some total like brush fire in his actual job.
Yeah, Ward,
Ward's had a few of those with the Content Stallions business, but Mac Rhodes has got a coach who's got a lot of people fed up at Baylor, and he's got to maybe make some decisions there while he's also chairing this ludicrous committee. So good luck to Mac. All right. Winners and steak dinners, the picks. Before we start making predictions, I'm going to make a different prediction for us, that by the time we are publishing this podcast next week, we will have indictments from the Eastern District of Pennsylvania in the college basketball part of the gambling scandal that's going on. I don't know that for a fact, but that's my prediction. Stay tuned. If that is the case, we'll certainly talk about it next week. But there's a lot percolating there, and the basketball season does start on Monday.
So now, you're betting on a betting scandal.
I am.
To clarify.
Yeah, sponsored by DraftKings. Thank you. There we go. Now, standings getting interesting. Gene has gone from first to worst, I think, here. You do still have the Bear on your side, but Bryan Fischer on top at 25-21. I'm at 24-22. Gene is at 24-23. I do love the fact that we're all over 500. We're profitable if we were actually betting, which we are not. And again, we don't advise you to bet on our picks, but we're not like embarrassing ourselves. So give yourselves a hand, guys.
Yeah, I can't do that. I had a 1-in-4 week, so
yeah, things didn't go well for you there.
No, I'm pacing myself though.
Yeah, well,
and I wanted to get you guys kind of back. It was a little embarrassing for you. So, we're a team, and I want you guys to feel good about yourselves.
It's very magnanimous of you. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Team player, Gene Wojciechowski. Every week is a chance to come back. So this one, let's start. We got a Big Ten game of interest, two teams that are on the edge of competition in the Big Ten and in the playoff. Loser, it's an elimination game, I think. Winner feels pretty good about themselves for another week. USC giving 6.5 at Nebraska. Cornhuskers started well, have not maintained their momentum necessarily. USC has had some high points. I was there when they could not stop Notre Dame at all, lost that game. So Trojans giving 6.5. I didn't even put who to start with. So let's start this with Bryan.
Well, you love the clash of narratives in this one, right? You got the Matt Rule, can he beat a ranked team narrative? You got USC and Lincoln Riley on the road in the Big Ten, where they've had a lot of issues, especially leaving the state of California. So, very, very clash of narratives here. I was going to lean with Nebraska, but I just think the USC running game is going to be the difference. We saw that against Minnesota. They ran all over Nebraska. I think Jaden Mayava, because he'll have a clean pocket in this one, and I don't think Nebraska's going to get much of a pass rush, I think they'll kind of be able to outscore Nebraska a little bit. So reluctantly, betting on USC, give me the 6.5, I guess.
Who's not going to have a clean pocket is the Nebraska quarterback. I mean, Nebraska's O-line is a bit of a disaster area. So Nebraska has never beaten USC. Of course, they've only played 6 times. I don't think they win this Saturday. I like the Trojans coming off the bye week, so I'm with Bryan. I'll give the 6.5.
Yeah, unfortunately, I'm with both of you, but I got to go that way, and I think you guys nailed it. Certainly, Gene, Dylan Raiola has been under a lot of pressure this year. He's been sacked 26 times already in 8 games, and he's not Lamar Jackson. He's not going to be able to just manufacture stuff out of the blue outside the pocket. He's not immobile, but he gets sacked a lot. So I'm going with USC. I really liked their offense when I saw them in South Bend. They've got players, they've got playmakers, and Lincoln Riley can draw it up. So I'm going to say that the Trojans actually go to the Midwest and beat a functioning team. Doesn't happen often. All right. I stuck this one in. I took out an ACC game because I just didn't think the ACC games were very compelling. And we're going to do a second SEC game. Vanderbilt at Texas. And the line on this, like if you just dropped in from, South America, you would not believe Vanderbilt is only a 2.5-point underdog in Austin, but that's the sign of the times that we are in. Arch Manning has been going through concussion protocol. I think it's very much up in the air whether or not he's going to play. Gina, what do you think?
And that's what makes this so tough.
Yeah.
If I knew he was playing, I probably would lean toward Texas. even though Texas has needed overtime to beat Kentucky and Mississippi State, two teams that are winless in their conference, I'm going to take Vandy because I know what I'm going to get out of Vandy. And I'm going to get a couple, 2.5 points out of it. I don't have a high degree of confidence on this. Pavia has not played particularly well against, really tough defenses. And I think Texas does have a really good defense, but, they've made a believer out of me, which means, of course, this will be the week that Texas wins 40-3 or something. But I'll take Vandy in the points.
I'll take Vandy in the points as well. And I hope Clark Lee goes up to Diego Pavia and goes, look, we will delay the flight out. If we can get a win, you can go out on 6th Street for a couple minutes. If you lead the team to victory, you can go out to 6th Street. We'll wait for you. And just to see that scene there, I think, Texas, you're right, Gino. I mean, like struggling against Mississippi State, which is a tough environment.
It is. It's really tough.
So I'll give them that. But, struggle the way they did against Kentucky. I mean, I just don't think the actual narrative around these teams has kind of caught up to each other. And so I think, Vanderbilt is the better team. And I think the quarterback run game with Diego Pavia in particular, having to account for that. Michael Taffy, he also practiced this week. I think he's a big part of that Texas defense. We'll see if he does end up going to play in this game. But I think there's the doors, the momentum that they have. I will side with them.
Boy, I'm with you guys there as well. I just think that Vandy is playing on a high level with a high degree of confidence, and Texas is kind of on the opposite end of it. A couple of things I would point. First of all, Vandy's pass defense is susceptible. They will blitz the heck out of a quarterback to compensate for a secondary that, or to try to create pressure because the secondary is not great. Texas offensive line is an issue. Are they playing their backup quarterback? Are they playing Matthew Caldwell? And if so, I think that Vandy can throw some stuff at you just that makes you unaware of where blitzes are going to come from and put some heat on there. So I just think there's enough things that add up to Vandy has a really good chance to win the game. And Texas, the way they're playing is just I don't know whether there's another fan base out there that's been more unhappy after consecutive victories than Texas is after.
You know what, Pat, though? I mean, it's a shame that Manning got knocked out of that game because he did put up some nice numbers. Texas's offense showed some glimmers of hope. Mississippi State, as Bryan said, is a very tough place to play. And if I knew absolutely he was playing, I would probably take Texas in this one. But I don't know for sure. I expect that he probably will play, but there's a lot to like about Vandy, too, in this one.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good point. He did play well against Mississippi State. Maybe his best game since he's been the starter there. So, yeah, we'll see if he's in. And he has made a lot of hay, running around with escapability. If he's coming off a concussion, you probably don't want him doing that.
Yep.
But we'll see. A lot probably riding on whether or not Arch Manning suits up. So if you are predisposed to bet that game, wait until you know who's playing quarterback. Also in the SEC, and also I think an elimination game, Oklahoma getting 3.5 at Tennessee. These are two teams that have had some very good moments and then had some moments where they struggled. And as I said, I think there's going to be desperation in the air in Neyland Stadium. Gene, what do you think?
I can see Neyland Stadium from my apartment building right here. And they are, if you believe in uniform mojo, they're doing the dark mode uniforms, Tennessee is, and apparently that's a huge deal to them. Kentucky put up a lot of points, a lot of yards, but Tennessee did not have its full complement of defensive players, including their leading tackler, linebacker Arian Carter. He's questionable for the game. I would expect he would end up playing in that game, and that would make a difference. I think it's a tight game, coin flip game, which is why, even though I think Tennessee can eke out the win, I'm going to take OU in those points.
That hook is a little scary, for me. But I think Tennessee at home, they should be able to bottle up Oklahoma enough. And I think the explosive nature of that Tennessee offense, they can hit some big shots downfield, occasionally. And I think that will be enough in this game to kind of get over the hump and cover that 3.5. So give me the Vols at home night. It should be an electric atmosphere there. That's for sure. And so one of those kind of coin flippy type of SEC games that almost seems like a back against the wall in terms of the playoff for Oklahoma. I just think Tennessee right now in that environment, that's going to be a little bit too tough for John Mateer that, let's face it, he has not looked like you expected him to look coming back from that hand injury. Maybe he does in this game, but I'm not going to bet against it.
Yeah, I'm taking the Vols here, despite the fact that, boy, their defense, here's what they've given up the last, 6 games, 44, 24, 34, 31, 37, 34. They're giving up a lot of points. But to Brian's point, the Oklahoma offense hasn't clicked the way it did since Mateer hurt the hand and had the surgery there. So there was a great stat that the SEC games on average are closer than the NFL, and the NFL, we know, they're all coin flip touchdown kind of games. And I think that's what we've seen in this SEC season. Is why it's been fun. I mean, there is a lot of tension, a lot of drama, even though teams like, Auburn and Mississippi State and Kentucky are at the bottom of the standings. They've come very close to beating some of those further up, but I will take the Vols here at home. The dark mode, that's it. They're doing it for the dark mode.
Well, and it's really more desperation mode if you think about it, because
it should be.
If they can beat OU, they've got New Mexico State, and then they're at Florida, and then what could be a monumental game here at Tennessee against Vandy. So they have a path, but OU is a formidable opponent. So it's going to be a really cool game with a lot of implications.
Yeah, they have a path, but they got to win this one.
Absolutely.
Yeah. All right, Cincinnati at Utah. Big number in this, 10.5. Evan Pryor, the running back for Cincinnati's had an excellent season, is out for this game, which is probably why that spread is as big as it is. Cincinnati's been one of the surprise teams of the year. Just one loss in the opener, and they're 7-0 since then. But going to play in the muss is never easy. So, Bryan Fischer, what do you got there?
Night game, going to be a little chilly. Give me Utah, just because the number is strange. And I think not only Evan Pryor out, but I just think Cincinnati's gotten to this start and they've gotten into position to where they've been undefeated in Big 12 play. A little bit of smoke and mirrors. I think that kind of gets exposed a little bit by that Utah defense that, what they did to Colorado last weekend was, you almost had to see it to believe it in terms of some of the numbers that they were able to clamp down on that Buffs offense. I think they can do that enough here. Devin Napier is supposed to play in this one. We'll see. Always the funny availability injury type of reporting issues that coming out of Utah that we're expected to see nowadays. I think the Utes at home, that environment, I think they do and end up getting a win and remain in that thick of that Big 12 race.
This is Cincinnati's on Eastern time, right?
Yes.
Okay, so this is a 10:15 p.m. body clock game for Cincinnati. I think that's tough. The spread was 7.5. So, Pat, to your point, this injury has helped bump that up, maybe those 3 points. I think it's a really tough ask for Cincinnati. Utah's coming off that woodshed win against CU. I applaud Cincinnati for what it's done, but I'm with Brian. I'll take Utah and give up the points.
Well, we've had entirely too much agreement on these picks. So for that reason alone, I'm taking Cincinnati.
Okay.
I would like to remind everybody.
Please.
I would like to remind all the listeners and my co-hosts here. Last week, when I picked North Carolina getting 10.5, and I was roundly hooted, mocked, derided, and I was right for every single minute of that game. They covered every single minute. Keep that in mind. 10.5, I'll take it.
Hold on. Do you want us to mention the text that you sent out earlier in that game to us?
That's because I was angry at North Carolina because they fumbled on the 1 yard line.
Okay, but what were your words?
I despise them.
Okay,
It was fleeting.
Okay, I just wanted to remind you. That's all.
You know, I'm a passionate lover. I get hot, I get cold. You know, I was unhappy, and then I was back, and I love them dearly for covering after that.
It's okay.
It's all good. So yes, give me the Bearcats. All right, lock of the week time, guys. Who has one?
Go ahead, Brian. I always enjoy this part.
Yeah.
You know, we went with the power conference teams last time. We got the win despite, Nick Saban was going on game day and he was picking NC State, but lock of the week rolled on with only one loss on the year. So we are going to go out. We're going to go out west. I know you've heard of these two teams, Gino. We're going to the Pac-12 championship. It's a two-legged tie, kind of in soccer fair, because they're going to play each other twice. Washington State giving 3 at Oregon State. 4:30 local kickoff, so you don't get the weird kind of nighttime Corvallis. It'll end in dark, but it won't be that weird like Corvallis night setting that tends to have some crazy results. But it's on big CBS. I think the Cougars defense, they can keep the Beavers out of the end zone enough, especially in the red zone with the way they're playing right now. Jimmy Rogers' crew, give me the 3 for Washington State to take the initial leg here of that Pac-12 championship.
Okay. I've got, I've pinpointed Pitt is giving 13.5 at Stanford. I wrote down some notes here. The Cardinal has more ACC wins than the combined total of FSU, University of Hoodie, BC, and Syracuse. Pitt has to travel all the way across country to that snake pit called Stanford Stadium. Right?
Yeah.
I'm going with Pitt in this one. I'm not sure there's a team that's really playing better than Pitt these days. They've won their last 4 in a row by an average of 20 points. This true freshman quarterback, Mason Heinschel, he's a revelation. I mean, he's been fantastic. He's second in the country in passing yards. Pitt is 4-0 since he took over. I don't think Stanford can keep up. I'll take Pitt and give those points.
That was a Lee Corso-esque bit of deception there. You started
like that?
in
Thank
one
you.
direction, yanked us back.
Yeah. Not so fast, my friends.
There you go. The snake pit in Stanford Stadium probably not going to intimidate the Panthers there. So, all right, I'm going. Washington State was my lock last week. They came through brilliantly against Toledo, so I don't blame Brian for going down that road. But I'm going to go the cocktail party, and I'm going to take Georgia and lay the 7 against Florida. I just think Georgia's kind of turned itself up a notch, playing better. Gunnar Stockton playing really well, and I don't know what to expect out of Florida. They fired Billy Napier, then they had a week off. They may come out inspired, but they may also be like, our season's over. So I just love, I think, the consistency of Kirby Smart in this game. He loves beating Florida and has done so repeatedly, and I think he'll do it again. And laying 7, I can see him winning that by 10, 14 points. So that's
only 7?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I had to jump on that one while it was offered. All right, gentlemen, we've got to close on this note. There is danger afoot in the South. We have loose rhesus monkeys that Tulane came from Tulane. There is some speculation that John Sumrall, in an attempt to gain favor in the playoff rankings, is sending these monkeys out to terrorize the state of Mississippi rebels, which is where they are loose. I will give you the background here. Jasper County Sheriff's Department confirmed Tuesday that the number of missing monkeys increased from 1 to 3.
Oh, no.
They're multiplying. After Tulane officials were able to safely access the wreck truck and conduct an updated count. So a Tulane truck of research monkeys wrecked in Mississippi. That's the bottom line. And there were like a half dozen of these things, skittering around in the woods of Mississippi. And they found 3 of them. 6 out of 21 escaped. 3 have been recovered. 3 at large. the initial reports were hilarious. They were like, these monkeys, they have every disease known to man, and they will kill human beings. Tulane says they are pathogen-free, so they are not necessarily going to infect you with rabies or COVID or whatever else that some people were saying that they had. But they are loose. We have 3 monkeys out there somewhere in Mississippi. My question for you all, if this is a plot by Tulane in any way, if this is attempting to help the Green Wave, should this be one of the things that the selection committee factors in when they meet next Monday?
Well, it sounds like it's more of a plot for, some sort of movie streaming on like Tubi or something like that. At the end of the day, it's like Monkey Truck 2025. Who's some sort of zombie movie.
Monkey Truck.
The backwaters of Mississippi State there. Like that to me is kind of what came to mind initially on the story. Though I don't think the committee is going to take too kindly for Tulane's antics. Maybe it's something from the administration to kind of scare off Ole Miss from poaching their coach if Lane Kiffin does end up leaving. So maybe it's less John Summerall as opposed to the old administration there in New Orleans.
Nice 3D chess move there. Yeah.
The real question is, Pat, what are you drinking in that container when you come up with these things? I just have no idea where you get these. I do know if they're looking for someone from Louisiana who could help with the search, who has been prohibited from participating in another search, Scott Woodward is available. So he could maybe help. And look, if you're a rhesus test monkey, wouldn't you be a little aggressive and pissed off too?
Yes.
So I don't know how to answer the committee thing, but if I were one of those monkeys, I would be very angry.
Yeah, I mean,
Ed Orton knows the state well too, and he does have a Humvee that he could be driving around to find those monkeys too.
True. I mean, Brian Kelly's available. We could put all kinds of people on. We could create quite a fired or nearly fired task force of monkey rescue units there. Yeah, no, I don't. I always root for the animals to escape and stay at large. Go live out there. There was a kangaroo that got loose in Guntown, Mississippi. We talked about frequently on the previous podcast. I think the kangaroo's still out there, and I hope the monkeys meet up with the kangaroo, join forces, build their own commune, do their thing. So, go monkeys. All right, that's clearly enough for this show.
Whoa, yes.
Thank you for sticking with us. Thank you for listening, watching. Please subscribe. Give us a nice review. If you don't want to give us a nice review, then don't give us one at all. And we'll be back next week. Thank you.